And she goes on to say, sort of as a coaching session or an exchange of what they've learned from the podcast and stuff. Like I said before, I mean, we could do that. We could do some
Mm-hmm.
form of like a coaching session
Mm-hmm.
on the podcast. That would be really fun, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put a category in the form.
Yeah.
I volunteer as tribute category. Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sarah Rosette.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show,
we are talking about your responses to the previous episode about what do you want? Because we've got a lot of responses.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Yes, and they're very helpful.
Yes. We don't really mean to sound needy, but, we do want to know y'all are listening. And so, yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And we see the download numbers, but actually finding out what you want has been very helpful, and it will help us in the future. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We don't have any new supporters, but thank you to all the continuing supporters. We really appreciate you guys. So what have you got going on? Do you want to go first or you want me?
I'll go. I've just been at my mom's this week. When you don't live close to your parents and you have a dream that their house burns down, and then the next day you dream that their cars got stolen, you think, maybe I should go check on them.
Just make sure everything's all good.
So I was supposed to come last week, but my grandson got the flu and I had to help. He couldn't go to school, so I kind of had to help care for him. And so I came this week, and it is cold as you know what here. Today it's in the low teens, and yesterday we had snow flurries, so that was interesting. But I mean, no real accumulation, but it's cold. And so yeah, I've gone to a local coffee shop and written each day. That sounds weird. And
you're still getting back in the groove.
Yeah, and yesterday I had to fish out. I only have one AirPod because I lost it in my car and they can't get to it. Like we took it in and they can't get to it's like in no man's land in my car. So I only had one AirPod, so I had that in because there was these two young moms talking on my left side. So I put my AirPod and I thought, well, that's plenty. But then there were three young women that were part of a group. We'll just call it a group. They were talking, and it's one of the groups that I find incredibly fascinating. And so
you're a little distracted.
Had to dig out I happen to have a earplug from
really?
my grandson to Monster Jam, and I put Monster Truck stuck it in my ear because if not, I would have gotten nothing done listening to their conversation.
That's so funny. I can't write in coffee shops. I just can't do it because there's too much going on, too much movement, too much noise, even if there's nobody talking, just the machines and stuff. I can't do it.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know that I like it a whole lot, but I mean, like you go in one little door and you get your coffee, and then you go out and in another door to the place where you sit. They'll bring you your coffee if you don't want to wait for it, but so it's a separate area, so you don't hear all of that.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if I like it because it doesn't really smell like coffee. It just
that's one reason you go. Yeah,
exactly. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, but I have been writing, and I listened to the Spa Girls podcast. The Spa Girls podcast, it's episode 484 with Amy Award. And Amy has had, she has had a super successful contemporary romance curvy girl series over the last year, I guess. But she implemented things that Jennifer Lynn Barnes talks about when Jennifer Lynn Barnes talks about the id and fandom and stuff like that. And she specifically wrote this series with those things in mind. And because of that, it has just, that and it's got great titles. I'm sure the writing's really done really well. I haven't read it, but it has really just taken off. And, it's so very good. And so I listened to that on my way up here, and anyway,
Mhm.
it's changed the way I was thinking about writing this book,
Ooh, okay.
and yeah, it's really good.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the show notes to that too, just in case anybody's looking for it. Every time I listen to Jennifer Lynn Barnes, I think, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to write about things that appeal to me so that I'm interested
Yeah.
and incorporate that in. And yeah, I love
Yeah,
it.
and I just finished Jennifer's, Inheritance Game series,
Uh huh.
and it's
Yeah.
super good, and she does incorporate all those I mean, like, now that I
Mm.
know what they are,
Hmm.
you can see those things woven through her stories and,
Hmm.
that series in particular, and it's really great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all I've been up to.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot. Let's see. I was going to tell you about, I licensed the mass market subscription rights for Death in the English Countryside
Oh, yeah.
to Harlequin Worldwide Mystery. And that will be out in June. And they sent me the author copies and they did a really good job on the cover.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
post it on this episode or something
Yeah.
so people can see it. But cozy covers are tough because either the artist gets it,
Mhm.
they don't, and it's like way off.
Yeah.
And this one, they really got it. So it was very cute. So I was really happy about that. And I've been working on my letters, trying to get those finished up.
That's great.
And yeah, doing that. And the other thing I was going to mention is Book Vault now has a box set covers and slip covers. Like if you want to do 3 and then put them in the actual cardboard casing, like you put them
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
they have that now. And they're really good. So if anybody's interested in doing that, I haven't done that, but that may be on my list for in the future.
That is a super fun thing to do, like direct sales or, for Kickstarter or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah. And I just saw the news just an hour ago
Oh,
that Spotify is going to allow audiobooks from 11 labs with AI voices to be uploaded to Spotify.
huh.
And so that's a game changer. I feel like that's a watershed moment because Spotify is so big now for
Yeah.
audio. And I feel like if you're depending on audiobook income,
Mhm.
they will still be there. People will still want human narrated books, but I feel like there's going to be a whole lot more books in the market now. So you might need to pivot, which we talk about in the next episode
Yeah.
with Kat Johnson.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we do talk a lot about pivoting in that episode. Wow. I'm a little stunned and don't really know exactly how to respond.
Well, I think it's just information that people need to know.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a different reaction and different
Yeah.
plans for how to
Yeah.
deal with it. So, should we get on with the?
Let's get on.
All right, we're going to do this. I'm going to read these out and then we're going to talk about them as we go through them. I tried to pull in everything from everywhere. If I missed your response, I'm sorry. We have Slack, Facebook, and the text responses. So hopefully we got them all. So these first ones are from Slack. The first one is from Belinda Kroll. She says, she's listening to the episode and she says this is one of the top 3 podcasts for her. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And she said, I feel people are busy catching up with life outside of quarantine days, even now. I wonder if consolidating the access point might help. Joanna Penn encourages listeners to send an email to make this more of a conversation. And I think that would be fun. I would welcome that.
I think that would be great. People are busy and just,
Hmm.
I mean, they listen to the podcast and then they move on. I do the same
Hmm.
thing. I
Me
can't
too.
tell you how many times, well, I should be able to tell you because it's not very many that I've responded to a podcast. So yeah, I get it.
I do too.
Having having people send us photos of where they're listening from would be fun. However, I can't get into our email. I've been locked out. But yeah, I
Yeah.
can't get in. So sorry about
Yeah.
that.
So maybe post on social media and
Yeah,
tag one of
that
us would
would
probably be better.
great. Yeah.
And I am not on Facebook hardly at all, but I'm on Instagram. So you can find me there, on Twitter a little bit too. So
Yeah.
I'm there. Jamie's on TikTok
Yeah.
as long as it exists,
Making
right?
a fool out of myself. Yeah, y'all go ahead and tag me there.
You're on Instagram too, though, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And the next one is Claire. She says, your podcast is my absolute favorite. I completely love it. So thank you for that. The interviews are always so interesting. Everyone has a different way of doing things and different wisdom to impart. And so I'm glad that that resonates, because that was one reason we wanted to ask the same questions, was to get the different responses.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do appreciate that. Thank you, Claire. That was Claire Jones.
Yes. And then Krista Baker says she's a big supporter. And then she says, I don't think you need to change anything unless you'd like to. So,
Yeah.
and these are a little bit longer, and I'm kind of validating them down, because if I read them all, this would be a super long episode. And so just wanted to let you guys know we got your messages and we appreciate them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we have the text. This one is from Fredericksburg, Virginia. And we don't get the names of the people unless you add them. So we just have the last four numbers from 0089. And it says the suggestion is to have more authors of mixed genres, such as speculative fiction. And I also enjoy listening to the two of you discussing your writing life. I'm glad, because we often wonder if anybody really is interested in that beginning section.
Gosh, I know. It's true. Yeah, and, like, speculative fiction, I don't know that I know anybody who writes
Mhm.
speculative fiction. So, I mean, not that that means anything. That just means I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
when we give you the chance to get in touch with us, please send us names of people you'd like to hear from.
I'll go ahead and tell you, I created a form. So if you have somebody that you would like to suggest, I'll put the link in the show notes. It's a short form. It's like maybe 5 or 6 things to fill out. Let us know who it is, how to
Mhm.
get in touch with them, and what genre they write in, and why they'd be a good suggestion for a guest. We'll talk about more of that as we go through, but that will be in the show notes. So if you know a speculative fiction author you would like us to contact, please let us know. All right, next one is from Houston, Texas, 6709. It says,
Courtney.
oh, thank you. This is again, Courtney. I'm a podcast supporter and avid listener. Um, she doesn't want us to end the show. She says, listening to you is like listening to two friends. And it says, possibly having a set rotation focus, such as craft, marketing, learning, or connecting,
Yeah.
or asking, I'm glad I know now, might
Yeah,
be an option.
but I'm glad I know now, which I like that.
I do too. Then we have Nashville 5168 says you bring unique voices to author podcasts, and I especially love the laughter. So that's good. We do a lot of that.
We do a lot of that.
And then Houston, Texas, 0528 thought for the show, why not have new authors on? So we have
Yeah.
done this. So if you scroll back in the feed, we did have a new author series, and it wasn't all in one. It was kind of spaced out, where we interviewed new authors, and I would love to interview more new authors.
Me too. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember that self-publishing podcast did this thing. I think they did a series like, every month or every 3 months or something. They did something where they brought somebody on and they looked at all of their stuff and then they
Yeah.
kind of evaluated it. I'm we could do that.
hmm
Because that would, that could help those people, but it could also help the audience. So we could do
hmm
something like that. I enjoyed that when they did that. Yeah.
I thought there was some good information in that. Yeah, we could figure out how we could do that. We could just give our feedback
Yeah.
and see, if we had any suggestions. Yeah, I think that could be a really good idea. Okay. So next up, Atlantic City. Just want to let you know, I love your podcast. I hope you will continue with it. That was from Melody. So
Yeah.
thank you, Melody. Gilbert, Arizona. I love the podcast. I've been listening since you started writing action thrillers. So my genre isn't often discussed, but I usually find a nugget in every episode. Authors that break from this is what the suggestion is. The authors that break from the herd to try new things always interest me as the number of books available to readers gets bigger and bigger. So yes, us too.
And those are the people we want to know about because Sarah and I don't know, like in the thriller genre, we don't know people who've
hmm
broken from the herd,
hmm
and are doing new and interesting things. So we would love to hear.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know who you'd suggest. Next up is Grafton, North Dakota, 2042. I don't listen to as many podcasts as I used to, but I make sure to listen to yours. You pick great guests, and I always learn something from every episode. And I do too. I learn something from every guest we have on, even if it's an author that I write in a completely different genre. I
Yeah.
still usually can find something that either inspires me or gives me an idea for marketing or something. So
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
understand that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I get it. Podcasts have been around for a while. So, and
Hmm?
again, the list of things we all have to do just gets longer and longer. So I get not being able to listen to as many or not wanting to
Mhm.
listen to as many. So the fact that people still listen to ours is such a compliment, and we're so grateful.
Mhm. Okay, United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland. They're going to get it all in this. The geotag on this one is, and then the number is 1282. And it says, I'm usually a silent lurker and don't give feedback, but I heard your heartfelt call. I've been listening to the podcast for about 2 years and like the format and your chemistry. It's refreshing that you're both so different. My tiny suggestion would be to ask each guest an extra question, which is totally random. That way you get the added spark of spontaneity. My question would be, what is the most unhelpful piece of advice you've received?
Ah,
And I think that's a great question.
that's really good.
We may add that. I don't know if we'll do the rotating or a unexpected question. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I like that though. But then we have to come up with it.
I know. And some, when you're interviewing people, sometimes they don't like to be
Yeah, a lot of people
surprised,
don't like to be surprised. Yeah,
which
we've done
I
that.
totally understand that.
Yeah, yeah,
So we may do that. We may throw that in occasionally. It would maybe people we know a little bit better who we know would
yeah,
be okay with it.
yeah.
Yeah. And then they also said text link does not work in on YouTube podcast. And so I this is something that YouTube does. It shortens whatever's in there. And sometimes if I've made a text into a hyperlink, the hyperlink doesn't carry over. I try and remember to make those separate, but you can always find the show notes on our website. So
Yeah.
that's the best place to find all the links. All right. Nashville, Tennessee, 6087 says, interspersed with the wish I'd known questions, what about what I need to figure out, except quippier?
Yeah.
A suggestion like take hypothetical authors or actual authors who send questions. An example would be I'm an author with 5 books in X genre and I'm not seeing sales and have done X and Y. What do I need to figure out? So this is a great idea. We could just
Yeah.
have people send in questions and
Right.
have a Q&A.
Yeah. Yeah. Which we have done before, but I think again, people are busy and sometimes
Mhm,
they don't always get their questions into us. I do like that, what I need to figure out, because I think we all need to figure something out, you know?
mhm. And a lot of times we get stuck at certain stages.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could do something on that business model or stages of business class that I did with Becca. If you're in stage 1, you might be stuck here. If you're in stage 2, you might be stuck here.
Yeah. That
We
would
could
be
do something like
yeah.
that.
So
Okay, so this next one is from Vermont 1695. Really enjoy the podcast. It would be great if you could open an episode up here or there to bring in a listener, maybe hear their writing journey and ask them questions. I think that sounds fun.
it does. Is that random or have them
I think we'd have to ask for volunteers. So I was going to say, if you would like to be on the podcast, if you're interested in volunteering, you can fill out that form. That the link will be in the show notes. Just fill out that form as yourself
Yeah.
and let us know because.
Yeah. And she goes on to say sort of as a coaching session or an exchange of what they've learned from the podcast and stuff. Like I said before, I mean, we could do that. We could do some
Mm-hmm,
form of like a coaching session
mm-hmm,
on the podcast. That would be really fun, I think.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can put a category in the form.
Yeah.
I volunteer as tribute category.
Sometimes Sarah just hits you with them and it gets me choked up. Oh, God.
I shouldn't have said that when you were drinking.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Next up, 5187, Fargo, North Dakota. I'd like to hear interviews with people who are starting out. A lot of the podcasts now interview full time, very successful authors, which are great and aspirational, but not always super applicable for new authors, which I
Yeah,
understand that.
I do.
Also, hear from vendors and or people from software programs to talk about how their tools can help authors. And then some more specific suggestions about episode topics, which we could definitely put on our list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We
one
could
of
do
them is how the two of you plan your years or quarters, and I don't know that we would have a lot.
that.
We're both kind of intuitive, and we're like, I feel like writing this month,
Maybe we can get a guest for that.
and we could just chime in occasionally.
Yeah, I like this, and I think that I get what they're saying. There's one full-time author in particular that's been doing this for a very long time, and when she'll say things like, online, like, I don't know why people are freaking out. It's not that hard, or and you're like, yes, but you came in at this
Things
time
are different.
and
Yeah.
you built a huge audience, and that audience has stayed with you, which that does. I'm not taking
Mhm.
away from her
Mhm.
success or the work she did. I'm just saying it's different now the strategies are different now.
Mhm.
Um, so you know, we need to examine those a
Mhm.
little more closely.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think having authors on that are very successful can be very inspiring, and I love hearing everybody's story, no matter when they started and how
Right.
long they've been doing it. But yeah, I think we lean more towards what was the phrase, like breaking out from the herd authors that are
Yeah.
really starting to take off.
Right. Authors have been doing it a while, but like you said, breaking out from the herd or just
Mhm.
pivoted.
All right, Vancouver, 2874. I still listen to a lot of podcasts, but prefer to focus on micro topics these days. For example, how to develop and weave a great plot twist, or how to develop and weave in smart clues. I also like episodes about marketing, the business of writing, if they're focused well, or recaps of how one specific market effort worked out. So those are really great ideas. I especially like the one specific marketing concept and do a deep dive on
Yeah.
maybe changing up your newsletter or
Right.
a certain type of ad or something like that.
Right. 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 Or using your newsletter in a really specific way.
hmm Anaheim, California, 7024. I enjoy your discussions on what works for you and what you've discovered doesn't work for you. I love to hear about all the things craft productivity, etc. So that's great to hear.
I mean, the good news is we got most, we didn't really get any that were like, really, if you don't change this, we're not going to listen anymore,
We're out.
which I guess that's good. But on the other hand, I mean, we do need to know what we can do better. But
hmm
I think we've gotten that. I think that people
hmm
are really
Yeah.
trying to be as honest as they can.
And we appreciate it. California 8267. Loved your podcast over the years and think what would be most helpful for me to hear is from other full time authors about what helped them ultimately level up, whether it was ads, audiobooks, newsletters, etc. Just the ones who are slowly building their career and have a solid backlist and fan base. So
Yeah.
that's kind of seconding the other comment.
And you should really, really like our next podcast with Kat Johnson, because
hmm
that we talk a lot about that. She has a huge backlist, and she just slowly over time been building up.
Just incremental
Yeah.
increase. Philadelphia, Mississippi, 9938. One thing I would personally love to see is more of some things authors wish they'd known about craft. For example, getting through the dreaded murky middle. Hear you on that. How to weave in subplots or how to make books longer. Favorite shows are the ones where we see a writer's journey, like with Pippa Grant, Elena Johnson, Amy Bowles, Nathan Van Coops. I've listened to those many times. Thank
Oh,
you.
very good. Yeah.
I think it would be informative to maybe see authors who are full-time authors, but who stepped back and are now part-time authors or chasing other paths in the author journey. And I've thought about this,
Yeah.
that we do need people who have changed course and are doing something different. I think that would be really interesting.
Right. Right. Because I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think for myself in particular, because, a few weeks ago, I was like, y'all, what should I do? What should I do? Because I don't know. For everybody, writing full time is not the goal. I mean, or
Yeah.
they make it is their goal. They get into it and they don't love it
hmm
like they thought they would.
hmm
And so, they might want to branch out and do something different, and how
hmm
that either enhances your writing or makes you go, I don't know, maybe I should pivot and do something like this.
Yeah. We will look for that if you have suggestions of people who are doing, who were full time and are now part time and are doing something kind of writing related.
Yeah,
Be sure and let us know.
yeah, exactly.
These are comments from Facebook. Rosie says, I've been listening to the podcast for a few months and thrilled to find you on social media. Also, I really appreciate your episodes. So that's great to hear.
It's good to know they found us. Yeah.
Yeah. And Margie Johnston says,
Marie Johnson.
oh, sorry. Marie Johnston says, I love this podcast and have listened since the beginning. Oh, Thank you. Interviews are my favorite, and I love interviews of just the author, not always the author selling something for authors or the author with a certain hack or sales trick. I
Mhm.
totally get that. I feel like there used to be so many author podcasts and a ton of interviews of authors and how they started and what they're doing and what they want to do, but they're also targeted now. I guess the podcasters are targeted now.
Mhm.
It seems like reader podcasts are the only place to get author interviews, but it's not the same. They tend to be less structured and more of a conversation based around a certain book. I
Yeah.
miss author interviews where they talked about the business of being an author.
Mm.
Yeah, so the podcasting author space has changed a lot.
Mhm.
So we're going to keep talking to authors.
Yeah,
Not going to
that's
change
good.
that. Cicely Quinn says, love the podcast so much. I've been binging, listening to everything. What she might want to hear about is how to create an engaged ARC or street team, how to build a newsletter list if you have 5 people on it.
Mhm.
And I've seen lots of promotion sites have minimum subscriber amounts. So, like, you've got to have a certain
Mhm.
number to participate. And so that is kind of a catch 22. Like,
It
how do you
is.
get that? Yeah. And then more historical romance authors. Good to
I
know.
I think that that is such a hard thing that,
Mhm,
and I've said it all along, even before I was building my newsletter, you know, how do you wanna succeed? Build your newsletter before you get a
mhm.
book. Well, how do you do that? Like, that's just too
It's
hard.
like the chicken and the egg.
It can be done, it can, but it is difficult, and it would be great if somebody with a brain better than mine could come up with a way to help that. I think that book funnel, is a good way, but you may have to start really small and just, with other authors sort of in your niche,
Mhm,
or some of us who have bigger list doing a solid for some
mhm,
other authors, and I think we
mhm.
need to think about that more, like
Yeah.
giving them the opportunity to be in a promotion with us
Mhm.
that even though they don't have a very big list, or being willing to put out new authors that we
In your
know
newsletter,
are being
maybe.
read. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which I did do, and so I feel
Mhm.
like I can say that,
Oh,
and I will tell you, my readers really appreciated that. Like, it
mhm.
was separate, and I told them upfront that I had not read these books. I did
Mhm,
vet them. They had to have
mhm,
had professional editing and a professional cover, but they didn't I had not read them, but I was giving them the opportunity to find new writers if they wanted to, and they
mhm,
really loved that. I had
mhm.
as many opens and clicks on those newsletters as I had on my person, the ones I.
Yeah, I've done that too. And sometimes I've gotten to where at the end of my newsletter, I'll put in, if I'm reading something that my readers would like,
Yeah,
I'll put a hyperlink,
yeah,
a books to read link, and I just put currently reading in the title of the book, and that's it. But I think that makes people click more because there's no picture, there's no
right.
description, and if the title is intriguing, they click. So that might be a way to established authors can help newer authors.
Yeah,
And I may be wrong. I'll have to double check this, but I think on BookFunnel, you don't you can set a minimum. Like, you can say people who want to participate in this promo have to have a certain
yeah.
ranking, but you don't have to do that. So you may just have to look for those promos that don't have that limit to get started.
Yeah, so for newer authors, you may have to just take something that's maybe will get you 25 new subscribers. That's 25 you didn't,
Hmm.
something that's not going to be huge. And then for established authors, look at how you can give a hand up
Yeah.
around you because, somebody gave you a hand up. Almost certainly they did in one way
Hmm.
or another.
Hmm.
And if they didn't, I bet you wish somebody had of. So
Oh, yeah.
about that.
Probably this could be a question that we ask the new authors is how did you build your newsletter list from the very beginning? And I think another thing is just networking with other authors. You have to find your people. If you have 5 or 6 people and you only have each 10 people on your mailing list, but if you share your books and your content,
Right,
then, eventually you will begin to build.
right.
So, some possibilities, and we'll think about adding that to the new author list questions. Brian says, I had a baby back in December, so I'm just now getting back into the writing saddle, enjoying the podcast. And something I'd like to know is a compare and contrast to having multiple POVs to a single POV. This might have already been covered, but I would be interested to hear y'all's take. I don't think we've talked about this. Have
No,
you?
I don't. We have either. I do think that multiple POVs really add depth to the story. Like I know a lot of thrillers will do the hero, maybe
Maybe the villain.
the villain, and maybe a side character who's in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Lisa Renee says, I've been listening to the podcast for years on Apple Podcasts, and there isn't any way to thumbs up or comment from my iPhone, but that doesn't mean I don't love listening. Enjoy every single episode. Thank you. I like interviews as it gives me hope and encouragement to stick to writing and marketing. An occasional episode on how-tos for marketing might be an idea, like some detail on what kind of Facebook ad or Amazon ad they use. Yeah.
Happy to do it.
That is, she is from Australia.
We're happy to do that. We appreciate these suggestions. Don't forget the form and give us some ideas of authors. If you want to be on the podcast, let us know. It doesn't mean we're going to have everyone on that gets suggested or anything. We have to look and see if it fits to what we're looking for. But we want you guys to be a part of this, and we want to give you what you want. Podcasts actionable and informative. So yeah, we really, really would appreciate your suggestions.
It has been really helpful to look through this because it will give us a focus going forward. And we have lots of great guests scheduled from now pretty much through March, I think.
Yeah.
So we will get in touch with people and use your suggestions. And if you want to be on the podcast, we really would like to talk to you, no matter what stage you're at.
Yeah.
And there's on the form, there'll be a place to suggest somebody and say if they're a new author, experienced author. And then if you want to come on and be a guinea pig and have Jamie and I just look at maybe your sales page or your book covers or something like that, we'd be happy to do that. So,
happy to do it. If you have emailed us and the form isn't enough to, if you need to talk to us about something other than on the form, you can reach us individually.
Oh, yeah.
Through our links on our website. So sorry about that. I'm working on trying to get a new one up, but I don't know if I'm going to, because we sort of got a lot of spam on that one too. So,
well, I guess that's all we need to talk about today, right?
Yeah, it is. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for being here every week. We appreciate it so, so much.
So thank you for all your nice comments. It's been very encouraging, and we will see everybody next week. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to wishiknownorwriters.com/support, and the link for the form will be in the show notes.
That's right. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.